Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peter Igaga, and I want to welcome you, as always, to your favorite show, and that is Men. Now, we talk about the things that nobody wants to talk about, but today we are talking about something that is all over the news. Some of you have experienced it, some of you are doing it, but we'll get to that. And it's about sexual harassment. Now, sexual harassment is a very gray area. Some people say, I was just joking, I didn't mean it. Others are like, yeah, I mean, it was that. So we want to talk about it tonight, and we want to share our thoughts with you. Now, we're here at the Sheraton Kampala Hotel on your favorite show that's brought to you by Obulamo. Now, today we have a bit of a different show because Colin is not here. I was going to speak like a Nigerian and say there's a God, but we're likely to have some peace and quiet. Now, we've got two guests. We'll start with the lovely lady, Gloria. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we started, you've been very, yes, pro-women. Eh? It's a good thing. The gentleman in the corner there is feeling beaten.
No.
And and then we've got Billy. I'll not see what the other one, which the other name we gave you, but yeah, we'll go with Billy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's also good to have you here as our legal mind. Now, we're going to start with you, Gloria. Sexual harassment. Now, we've heard about, there's this guy, Harvey Weinstein, who's all over the news because of sexual harassment. So many women are now coming up and saying, oh yeah, he did this, he did that. And which is usually the story. We've had great people like, I was going to say Bill Cosby. I was about to say it's a Bill thing because also Bill Clinton have come up. But what I'm trying to understand is there a difference between flirting and sexual harassment, in your opinion?
I think it all comes down to the culture and the environment. Some people don't really take flirting in a positive way.
Yeah.
So some people will take it as a sexual harassment. Especially if you, for example, where I work, you cannot tell a customer, oh, you're beautiful. You cannot, because you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be her husband.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, but they don't take it. You're not supposed to tell a lady, oh, you have a very good body, or you have a very nice... No, you don't. Because secondly, not all people like the features on them. So for you to even come out and give it a compliment, while they're in their mind, they know it's not good enough. They'll be rude about it. They will not take it as a compliment. So you easily find yourself thinking you're complimenting someone, but then you're harassing them.
Okay. Right, that's interesting. Now, Billy, you are today our legal expert.
Okay.
Where's the line? Where's the line in the sand where you say, all right, if you go beyond this, and let's now take the Ugandan context. Say beyond this, I mean, that's it. Because I've seen some places, some cultures, where a lady walks past, they grab her hand. You know, and it's like, I mean, if she doesn't want to talk to me, she just says, I don't want to talk to you.
And she walks away. Fortunately or unfortunately, is that Uganda has one of the best, I think, laws in East Africa. We have managed to lay down so many principles, so many laws, saying this is not allowed. My law is a bit rusty, but from what I was reading, is it's an implied or express sexual advances towards someone, which could be physical, they could be verbal, or there could be written responses. It could be, even pinching in the law is considered sexual harassment. Patting someone is considered sexual harassment. But however, we're in a society which is very dicey, it's a topic which we can't really put our finger on. I was doing some research and I found out that there has been one case reported of sexual harassment so far. I don't know if something has changed or something. One case since the law came into existence, can you imagine? And yet studies in 2008 reported over 50% of women at workplaces have been sexually harassed. And several of the cases do not even make it to the courts of law. So at the end of the day...
Yes. I was at the bus, I was taking a bus to somewhere, and they were supposed to be kind, but then he touched me, and I told him, no, don't touch me. You can still help me without touching me. And he said, John, how we? You feel it's not right. Yeah.
So it is something which in our society has been, we have allowed it to happen. We have accepted it, and therefore it's nothing. It's not something important to us anymore. It's not something that work environments are supposed to have. Every person, imagine in the law, if you employ people above 20, if you employ more than 25 people, you're supposed to have a sexual harassment policy. Yeah. And the policy should be put in a place which is not conspicuous. And the rules should be laid down. And there should be a sexual harassment committee.
Okay, all right. That's a lot to take in. You're scaring some people, like my dear friend.
No, you're not scared.
Had to take
where he works there, 24.
Now, Stefan, from your side, all right. A lot has been said, especially in terms of culture, about what you can and what you can't do. When we look at the law, it's clear. I mean, the reality is people know. It's not that we don't know. True. I mean, we know what we're supposed to do or what we're not supposed to do. But there are a lot of people, especially young men, okay, who, I don't know whether to blame them or to blame the young ladies, because also the young ladies kind of like dare them. I've heard of situations where somebody has been told by a young lady that, you know what, you're a slow guy. I mean, you didn't.
I feel like we should define what sexual harassment is, because we are a culture that copies and pastes everything from the West.
True.
You know, so there's a sexual harassment thing going on worldwide. So we feel like we should also embrace it. You know, I also feel like women, I'll say women specifically, will jump on anything that makes them relevant. Why am I saying this? You know, for example, no. Let me say this. A week ago, we had the Girl Child Day or something, and I remember I said something like this. You know, you'll find women will jump on things like the slut walk movement or free the nipple movement, but you'll not find women jumping on things like, you know, what's affecting the girl child in today's society. I feel like, for example, Lupita Nyong'o, she jumped on the Weinstein thing, that she said that she was sexually harassed. But there's nothing, you know, what is sexual harassment? In Africa, flirting is something that's common. You know, it's part and parcel of our culture. So what is sexual harassment? And then when you talk about sexual harassment, are we talking about female sexual harassment or male sexual harassment? Because I've been harassed. Okay. You know, I told you this off air. You know,
we'll get to the part of you being harassed.
I'd
like to see what that looks like.
Yeah, you know,
I'm suffering.
I have been harassed. You know.
But I'll tell you what.
That's a double sword.
Yes, it's a double-edged sword, and I'll tell you why. I agree very rarely with Stefan, but I kind of agree with what he's saying. I mean, traditionally, as Africans, we, even in the way we talk, there's a lot of flirtatious, what do you call it, innuendos that are in our language. Now, are we supposed to stop that and stop being who we are and say, I mean, if somebody sees a girl who he last saw maybe 10, 20 years ago, then he tells her, oh, you're ripe like corn. I mean, he means it in a good way, you're right. Yeah. But that can be taken out of context. Chris.
Trust Peter to throw me the dicey ones. Look, first of all, I don't think that it's necessarily true that the African culture is outrightly flirtatious.
It is.
I think that we have euphemisms, meaning we are generally very polite we're not very outright and forthright about sexuality.
True.
So we find very many nice ways to sort of say what we're saying without saying what we're saying. Yeah. It's because we don't, in the African context, when someone says, the equivalent of balls or whatever that is for the woman, it's like it's vulgar. It's like, good dude, what are you doing? But for the Western world, these are balls, and you know, they just, life goes on. In fact, you know, very religious people say balls. Okay, so we come from a culture where we use a lot of euphemisms, and it's not just Africans. In Asian cultures that happens, in the Hebrew culture that happens. All right. So that's I think layer one. Layer two is that because it's a subject or a topic where there is lots of euphemisms. Like for example, I heard this song by Fred Sebata, Doleo Mwana. It's been around for a long time, and it took me years to figure out what the song was about. I'm like, okay, so guy left a doll, he went, drove back home. Really? What's wrong with the doll? Do you see what I mean? But the guys who, you know, so how I picked interest in it is every time guys are listening, that song, you know, guys like it. So you keep on asking until someone lets you in on what's going on. So I don't think that part of our culture, which I think is really good, is the problem. Sexual harassment is a totally different ballgame, right? It's a totally different ballgame because if a girl wants to play, if you send a signal and she sends back come right on, let's do this. Okay. That's not harassment. She wants to play. Yes. Okay? Harassment is she doesn't want to play and you want to play. So your game is no longer a game. It's it's something else.
So what is sexual harassment?
Yes,
you know,
see, but then the thing is, Chris, where, as I mentioned when we started, that's a very gray area. Because I'll give you a simple example. As men, we're very physical creatures, all right? A girl comes and touches me on the shoulder, just saying, hey, like, maybe she wants to borrow my pen or something. And maybe, I've been giving her the eyes. I'm like, she's telling me something. I mean, out of all these guys here, why me?
It's like a pervert.
No, it's true.
Someone asks for a pen and you're thinking,
why is she touching me? Why isn't she touching anybody? And there are a lot of guys who think like that. It's not just me.
It's true.
No, but did she notice that you always?
I may have. You see, I may have. You've heard of situations where a girl says, "Oh, I thought he was just being a nice
friend."
guy.
Yes.
I thought he was just being a friend. Yet, I mean, at the end of the day, the dude is like, "But come on, it was obvious."
That's why. That's why.
Depending on how she
That's why, you know. That's why I was saying that, you know, society will always back her if she says that. Society will always back her if she says that, you know, I was sexually assaulted. But if Peter says that, you know, this lady touched me and
I was my pen.
And
I was harassed.
Let me give you an example. If I touched her shoulder, and she said, you know, don't touch me, and she went and reported me to the HR, it would be sexual assault. She'll say that, you know, I didn't feel, I didn't want her to touch me. But if she touches Peter it's a different story.
And Peter says,
the reason why it's like that is because, you know, we live in a patriarchal, you know, society where, you know, we feel like men, I cannot be sexually harassed. But it's true. I'll give you an example. Immediately after campus, I found myself somewhere in Kampala and I didn't have transport. I was
the story's
no, true. This is a true story.
Listen in. This is good.
I found myself somewhere in Kampala and I didn't have transport. I was walking home, and this lady decides to give me a lift. You know, she parks the car on the side. It's like, yeah, she was older than me, and she's like, "Can I take you
on
home?"
that day when you didn't have transport?
I didn't have transport. I was like, you know what? I'm a guy. You know, what would a chick do? She says, you know what? Let's go home.
So
let me, you know, let's drink something at home and then.
Boss, you were going home.
I was going home,
and you went to her home.
But because we live in that patriarchal, you know, society, because you know, I'm a guy.
I'll tell you why.
You feel like
you thought you were stronger.
Let me finish this. So I found myself in this guy, in this lady's house, and it's around midnight. Whoa. I'm putting on my boxers and whatnot.
How did you get into your boxers?
And that's what I'm talking about, you know, because of that mentality that, you know, I'm a guy, this cannot happen to me. That's why women will get away with it. If he says he was assaulted, he was assaulted.
So
Why do we choose to believe a woman? No, it's true.
The bit's missing.
I know. The bit's missing. How did you get to her home? How did the boxers? How did you find yourself in the boxers?
Transport. She should have given you.
So
We
much
are
we
talking
need to
about
hear.
sexual harassment. Now, Stefan has said something I really don't know how to
Should have given
We're
you
not
a
going to get
lift
into the
home
details of
and
this
not to
story.
his house.
So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back from the break. In case you've just joined us, we're here at the Sheraton Kampala Hotel talking about sexual harassment. Don't forget, this is your show. We want to hear from you. Go to our Twitter handle. It's hashtag NTVMEN. And let's engage in this discussion. You can also follow us on Facebook. It is NTVMEN. Like our page and talk to us. This show is brought to you by Obulamu. Now, before we went into the break, the man has a point. And we're not going to get into the...
He didn't have transport. He was supposed to be given a lift to your home. If people have given me lift, but I specify, are you taking first? Are you taking me home? If you're taking me somewhere else, leave me where you found me.
No, okay. No,
Can I say
She took advantage of me, you know. She was older than me.
We need a legal mind.
She intoxicated
Until
me.
Can I
midnight.
Stefan?
Yes, just hold on. Before we get there, one thing I want you to just take note of is what Stefan has said has actually happened to a lot of ladies. It becomes funny when it happens to a man.
Yes, yes, because of the society.
However, this is not legal. This is just my opinion. One, there's voluntary assumption of risk.
Okay, break that down in small,
and I need to
English
break
words.
that down properly. Let me give an example of this lady. If she came to the office with something very, very, very short, what type of attention is she trying to attract? And therefore, if she comes with that kind of skirt or that kind of wear or whatever she's dressed in, she has assumed if anything happens to you,
Voluntary assumption
you
of
probably
risk.
put yourself in that position. Same story, Stefan. However, why I want to save Stefan is in this day and age, we have what we call women of power. I love the government that it has helped to empower so many women, and we have so many women in positions of authority. The funny thing is, most of these women have chosen career over family, and that's the reality of it. And most of these women of power are actually harassing young gentlemen.
Yes.
It's happening a lot, and it's happening in every office. And because of the society we're in, the university churns out 4,000 people per year, students or graduates. People don't have jobs. People are poor. People are looking for employment. You cannot go against some of these things.
Billy, can I ask you one simple question?
Yes.
What
If I willingly go to be harassed, okay, because I have a choice.
Thank you.
Okay.
You could have
Like
walked home.
Stefan's case
Yes,
was.
that was the choice
It
he
was
made.
not willingly. I'm
He saw an
a
opportunity.
minor. I'm a young person. I don't have transport.
Stefan, however,
Let me-
I don't think he was harassed. I think Stefan.
Put yourself-
I think Stefan allowed to be in that
It's so
position.
funny. We are all laughing at it, and
But
we're still
that's
laughing at
harassment.
it.
No.
No,
Stefan,
it's not
Stefan,
because you.
no, seriously. Let's
Guys.
break this thing down into process. Okay, I like to follow some process. Okay, Stefan is broke. He has no transport.
Walk home.
Stefan waves down a car.
I didn't wave
particularly.
it. No, I didn't wave
Okay,
this
so
car.
she parked.
She
Okay.
parked the car and asked me,
She saw
Okay,
opportunity.
can I
to-
drop you home?
Can I drop you home? Stefan
sir.
says,
Yes. Where is your home?
okay, what can happen to me? I'm a guy. So probably Stefan sits and says, my home is in Chitintale or wherever Stefan stays.
Okay.
And she's driving.
And she drives. Somehow, between he's saying his home is in Chitintale, he finds himself in
Nigeria.
Runguja,
Opposite direction.
okay? In her home. And suddenly, before he realizes it, it's midnight and he's in his boxer shorts. He's being harassed. Help me out here. What sort of harassment
Stefan
is
saw an
this?
opportunity.
But guys, I'll tell you what. Is taking advantage of somebody harassing them?
Like what advantage?
No.
I'll tell you,
Context.
yes, I'll
Context,
put it
yeah.
into
Put it
context.
into context.
Just wait, because I've noticed,
coming
you see,
there.
especially, yes, and I want to bring this thing home from a lady's point
Sorry.
of view. So here I am, okay? But now let's switch it, okay?
Okay.
There's Glorias
Use me?
there, okay? Maybe, you know, you can always tell a damsel in distress. Okay, and there's some guys who, in Swahili, they're called Team Mafisi. The guys who have specialized there, they will sit in a bar and just look. And then they see somebody, they can tell, oh, she's looking at her phone, she's stressed and all that. Hey, what are you doing? How can I have a drink? Of course, she's not all that. Say, don't worry. You're worried about getting home, I'll get you home. And she says, oh, cool, no problem at all. I'm a nice guy, all right. I even, because they usually are, by the way, very nice guys, chat up and all that. And she says, you talked about, said clearly, I'm laying down my cards and saying, you're going to take me home? Yes, no problem at all. Fine. Let's go. Okay. Start going, oh, you know what? There's a bit of rattling in the car. Why don't we pass by a petrol station somewhere and then, what do you call it? Then I'll go through there. All right, you know what? We're going to a place. Let's go through a shortcut. All right. Bang. End up in the middle of nowhere. It is you and him.
Okay, that's harassment.
Then why is it that when you flip it's not harassment?
That's why I was saying. Okay.
That's a predator.
Exactly. All right.
I don't care if it's me or you.
Where I was going with this is, you see, one of the things which we have to be cognizant of is there are predators.
Yes.
There are people who make it their point to actually prey. And
there's no argument against that.
Yeah.
I just would like you to put Gloria in Stefan's story.
Yeah.
The same story.
It was still
Gloria is broke. Wait.
Yeah.
Gloria is broke.
Can I rebuttal that?
Oh, let me finish. Gloria is broke. She has no transport. A guy comes and offers her a lift.
Okay.
She weighs through and says, maybe this is safe. Gloria wants to go to Chitintale.
Yes.
Gloria finds herself in Lunguja, in the guy's home.
Drunk?
Because of a conversation they've had, and she accepted to consider going to Lunguja, and at midnight she finds herself naked in her petty sleep, and she is harassed.
Guys,
I still don't buy that story, whether it's a guy or a lady.
Because you got yourself.
Harassment.
Let me tell you something. I don't have money. You're giving me a lift. Yeah. Let's first stick to the point that you have to get me to my place. If I see a diversion to anywhere else, I need to be. I can choose, okay, because in this part, women would be a bit scared. Now I'm seeing you take another direction. You're a man. Now I'm thinking, oh God. It's different for you. You can overpower her somehow. I don't know, somehow. But with the woman, you'll be so scared. But to the extent that he drives his car to his gate, opens, you go inside, you enter his house, take a drink. Guys, can I tell you about a very Can I tell you about a very practical example? Because I once had a neighbor who, I remember in the morning I was going to work, he's there in the car park negotiating with a girl okay, who he has carried home. She's very upset. She saying she wants to go home. He's saying the car is not working. She's yelling, saying, how come they came here? That he said he was coming to get money to fuel the car to take her home. So things can happen. And what I'm saying is, I don't think it's
Peter,
fair.
Are you that neighbor?
No.
I know. That's the story.
No, but what I'm saying is, you see, they can actually get into the situations where somebody can be in a situation that they didn't. Maybe they were too trusting, okay?
Yes.
And they did not see that.
Or naive.
Now, would that be? Can a guy justify himself and say, the same guy who was touched and says, but she agreed to have a drink with me, right? She agreed to get into my car. Okay, so when now he can say, oh, you know what? But then how comes now it's sexual harassment?
So Peter, I think one of the things that Billy said earlier, which we seriously need to follow through, is why is there only one case reported in the courts of law? And I don't know how thorough that study is or that research is, to say in Uganda reporting sexual harassment. Yet, if any of you have a sister,
neighbor,
or a mom, or any female who is your relative, you hear them complaining about sexual harassment all the time.
Every day, yeah, true.
All right? There's got to be a problem between what happens in the field and what happens in the courts of law. I once talked to a senior lady who did not agree with her partner in a marriage and wanted to resolve or dissolve the marriage.
Okay.
But could not see herself go through the divorce proceedings based on the grounds she had, because in the courts of law you need to break down, say for example when you're saying sexual harassment or marital rape, you got to explain it and describe it point by point. The lawyers are going to push you, and you've got to. It's very gruesome. And remember our culture. Remember the euphemisms. We don't want to be overt about some of these things. So then you say he touched me. He touched you where? Here. How? Like this. And so you're acting out the whole thing, and yet you are a victim of circumstances, and it's like you're relieving the pain in the public eye. So some of those things stop many people from coming out and saying this is what really happened. All right? And I think that that's a reality we need to be sensitive to. It's very difficult, especially for ladies in our culture and in our society, to come out and say this is what he did. This is how he was looking at me. This is what he was doing to me. These are the things he said. But luckily these days, if you have emails and the guy's been dropping emails and things like that, you can have an email trail to say, here's the emails he's been writing to me, and someone can, on the basis of that evidence, be able to prove it. But if it's a touch or a pinch, there's no camera. You are in the kitchen, making tea in the office, and some guy comes and he's rubbing your butt. How do you record that?
I want to throw something for us to think about. Now, there are certain cultures, like amongst the Karamajong, where a man gets his bride when he raids the next village, and he actually has to abduct her, all right, to show that he's a man, all right, and she's gonna fight, so he has to even, fight her back and pin her down, give her a few slaps and kicks, and then she's like, if he's strong enough, it means he can protect me, but if she can beat him off, then she's like, he's a weakling. All right. So I understand, I don't know how true it is, that there are some women who, like if every time a village is raided and nobody takes them, your parents start telling you, why don't you go? I mean,
get taken.
Get taken.
Organize this.
Now, with these,
beat me
Calm
here.
down.
Yes.
Oh, that hurt.
Now, with those cultural issues, again, will that be termed as sexual harassment, or is that just one of those things that happens?
And that's why I say that we need to define what sexual harassment is.
Or is it even definable?
Like you need to say
before you tell us that.
But he defined it at the beginning of the show. He said these are unwanted sexual advancements.
But you see, again, the reason why I've been using the term gray area very much is what is unwanted to me could be wanted to you.
See, in the context of the Karamajo story you have just said, if the girl wants to be muscled down,
then it's fine.
And she says, okay, you touch here, that hurts, and goes down, that's not harassment. There's an invitation. Because the thing is that for I think the lawyers use the word consent. When there is consent, when it comes to sex, it's not harassment. It's a communication, and it's two people playing. But when you have someone who is an aggressor, and I want to agree with Stefan on the thing of it's not necessarily only men who sexually harass women. It's also possible for women to sexually harass men. It's just that the story he
Thank you. At last, he comes
now
to my
we have
side.
to get into a break. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back from the break. In case you've just joined us, you have just managed to get the last part of the show in which we are talking about sexual harassment. Now, this show is brought to you by Obelamo, and we're here at the Sheraton Kampala Hotel, and it is work. But we're going to get to you to just fill us in on a little story. But before we get there, something to consider. Is there a possibility, and I would like you to tell us from a lady's point of view, Gloria, that there are some women who use sex to climb the corporate ladder, and then when they've achieved what they want, to justify and shut that door behind them, they cry foul? Because, for example, like Harvey Weinstein, I forget his name.
Yeah.
Why would somebody come up after 30
So many years, you know?
Especially
Okay.
Bill Cosby.
Okay. Bill Cosby, same thing, after 30 years. So because we know there's some women who use sex to climb the
Most
corporate ladder.
women, most women.
No, that's true.
No, it's the truth. It's the truth.
Okay.
It's the truth.
No, that's a whole different story. So is that a possibility?
He's looking for a word out of me.
No, it's the truth. I call it comparative advantage.
I'll let you fall in your pit.
You know, why is it that we have,
You know, I won't even go deep into it. It's so wrong for someone to use someone and then later claim anything. It doesn't matter if it's sex or anything else. It's so wrong. I don't care if this woman was even harassed during the process. You are trying to get something from someone and they got something from you. So please don't. Yes. But yes, women sexually harass men. I've seen this. I was walking in the street and this woman was literally chasing the guy. Excuse me, please, please. And really, I felt for this guy and I wanted to slap the life out of this woman.
Okay.
Because I felt like the guy, and the reason why the guy couldn't do anything is because, again, they'll pin him down because it's a woman.
Yeah.
But no, women really do that, and it's so wrong. Because at the end of the day, the men try to respect the women. Because if a woman hunts down a man and is sexually harassing them, they know they won't go to talk to anyone about it. They'll walk away so fast, which is different. A woman will go crying to anyone who wants to listen.
I feel like a victim today. You know?
You can relate.
I can relate to it.
Yeah, but not with your
Your
story.
story, your story is
You were in
both
Karamoja.
saw
You
an
were in
opportunity,
Karamoja.
you saw an opportunity, and then they saw an opportunity,
the
and both of
Karamojong
you took
bride.
advantage of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
And
different.
just to jump into what she said, it's very interesting. We have several problems to this. One, we have a policy that we have that doesn't work. Half the people here are not educated about sexual harassment or what are the perimeters of sexual harassment, and that's what we're talking about here. The other factor is we have a high level of unemployment where people will do anything to get where they need to get. Then there's also a problem. I'll give you an example. I worked in a bank, and oh my God, I think banking is the most sexually charged, I don't know, environment.
Money.
Because
Money.
people are either working too much and can't socialize or something. And what would happen was the bosses who would actually harass these new entrants and fail, maybe the girl says no, they would not fire you. It would be so interesting. They'd actually transfer you. So here you are, you're a young girl, you used to Kampala, maybe you're staying at home, and someone says you're going to Yumbi.
Because you've challenged
Because
his
you
ego.
have challenged his ego. And then you've said no. So he's putting you in a position where you're going to quit or say, I'm tough as nails, I'm going to work there. So that's what banking does. The banking sector is so bad that people get transferred over. You're married and someone is trying and he says no, and you're transferred to a place you can't be, and your husband will be like, you can't go there. And that's a society which is so dangerous. The other thing is the government employs so few people that so many people in the private sector. So the HR who you're running to also is answerable to the boss, the same boss who's harassing you. So, okay, who are you going to report to? You're going to the HR who's also answerable to the man responsible for her salary too. He could just fire both of you and move. And the fact that in Uganda today, someone can fire you because there's someone who can do your job cheaper at a cheaper rate. We have so many inequalities. So we have a society that has so many imbalances that we're not able to balance it out. However, in the advanced countries, which is very interesting, is that a sexual harassment suit can bankrupt a company. It is that serious. In that if a boss has reported, you see the CEO, that the man you're talking about, he had to leave the company. He's not CEO anymore. They had to save the company by firing him. That's how bad a sexual harassment suit can be in the advanced world. I was talking to a friend of mine called Play, and he was telling me in German, they did a study and they found that 30% or less than 30% of the people cheat. But what are the consequences of cheating? You know very well half your property is going to go. They have the penalty is so bad. Do you know the penalty of sexual harassment? Oh, this is so great. I've got first poll.
Wow.
It's 6 currency points. a currency point is 20,000.
That's like 120K.
That's 120,000, or 3 months imprisonment, or both. 120,000. Someone can even give you a salary advance and then grope you. That's how bad it is here. But in a country where someone knows this could background, that's why it is so clear. You see, even when you have a relationship in advanced countries, you sign a form. Both of you sign, we're in love. This is so that people avoid sexual harassment. Yeah. Something with cheating and divorce and all that. In advanced countries, it's very serious. What's the penalty here in Uganda? I don't think they changed it. I don't know how much they changed it, but it's so low. So when someone knows that, I believe that the legal system needs to do so much to enforce morality to the point that someone knows there's a pinch. It's not, I'm not getting away with it. There's a huge penalty to it. And that's why you find that in advanced countries, it is such a big issue.
What Billy has just done is to give us lots more reasons why sexual harassment cases do not come up in courts of law. And yet we know that we live with this vice on a day-to-day, right?
Sure.
And I think that ultimately, what would be most helpful in our society in the now is for every single person to just decide, you know, not to do the thing. Because the thing is that it's possible to do it and you get away with it because of all the things he said.
Yeah, there's so many
right? There's so
loopholes,
many, like, you know, you can't prove it. Most people would not be willing to do it. This banking story, it's not, by the way, just banks. I don't think that only banks, it's only in banks, it's in many places. What happens in the universities, we've got, you know, sex for marks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
STDs, we used to call them STDs.
STDs.
Sexually transmitted degrees.
Sexually transmitted degrees.
Nice.
There you go. Okay. So the thing is that if you place your value, if as an individual you say your value is less than your job,
Thank you.
then anyone can use you, abuse you, because that's where you placed your value. If you say your value is less than a degree, then someone can, because this is the thing, in a workplace where someone stands up and they don't care whether they lose their job or not, they're saying, look, I'm not as cheap as the salary that I'm being paid.
But what do you do?
That's in an ideal situation.
Let me finish, Peter. Although the thing is that for most people, not for most people, for a number of people, breaking free from the hold of control, and I think it's Albert who keeps on talking about control. You know, it's all about control. If a guy is in control, you know, I can see Albert here saying, I mean, that's the whole point. If there is control, that's it. So the thing is that if you allow yourself to be controlled, or if you find yourself in a scenario where someone has got control over you, or you are, I would say you allow it, because you can snap out of most of control.
Yes.
Yeah. If you allow yourself to be controlled, then it's the onus is on whoever is in control to do or not to do. But if you realize that you two are in control of some aspect of what's going on, then you are able to tip the balance a little. Because I think that we've all been in scenarios where there is attempted harassment. Because it's true even on guys. Okay? But you either have to agree. I mean, like Stefan and me have never agreed on this point. He says men are weak. I think they are strong. Okay, so if this guy
when it comes to sex, you know, men are weak.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that men are strong. So if this girl is you know, is doing all these things and is really trying to prime up your engine, so you give in and you refuse.
That's on you.
It's on you. If you say yes, I mean, Stefan's guy just escaped. What do you do?
I've been in two scenarios, school and work. And at school, you have to have an understanding that one lecturer cannot fail you, because different lecturers mark your exam. You have to be confident in yourself that you passed.
There are 5 lecturers who have the same agenda?
Okay. This
these
is what I'm
things
saying.
happen.
But 5 lecturers cannot all have the
all
same
on one
interest.
girl? Like, what
No.
are you made out of
No.
gold?
Have no
Come
Secondly,
on.
You have to
police
understand
tried to
this,
shoot them.
and then secondly, you have to trust yourself. I did good, and there is no way I failed the exam, because I had this lecturer who told me, "Oh, you failed it. I need to give you marks," and I said, "No, I'm sorry. You cannot fail me, because I'll ask. I don't know whoever the top. I'll ask them for my exam to be remarked, because I know from the way I performed, I deserve more." So that, again, does it come down to your results or to give in to the controller?
But you know, not everybody's like you, right?
Thank you. And then at the end of the day,
That's
you
why we
put
have
value
this
to
show.
yourself. You put value to yourself. If it's more than yourself, then of course the controller will control you. At work, this gentleman, he told me, and I told him, you know what? I know this the saying that it's in Uganda. Akurage kubo. Akugobye akurage kubo. So if you think you will pester me and I'll give in, no, I'll leave the job.
Can I
You have to-
introduce?
But how many
can I
women are like
introduce
you?
a third dimension
At the
to
end
what
of the
he
day,
said?
if they give in, it's on them.
Can I introduce a third
On you.
dimension to what he said? He said the balance is between the value for your job. Is it the value for your job?
Yeah.
And then your value.
Yes.
Can I introduce also what you can lose? In the typical Ugandan society.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to
There's
say.
a third dimension, and I think maybe what is governing or what is letting this become such a huge problem in Uganda is what you can lose. Fine, I have my value, and I think this job, yes.
I've got 5 siblings who I'm paying school fees.
You've
Thank
looked
you.
for a job for
So
5 years.
So how
6
much?
years.
So what are you willing to lose? Are you willing to let this happen, or maybe control it, or
Are you
find a
still
way
going to
around
give in?
it? Are you going to give in? So what are you willing to lose? And most people, when they do that, when they weigh the mathematics, they're not willing to lose. They're not, because this is a society where they'll
But then
fire
if
you.
you
Still
know,
about control.
if you
It's the
know
same thing.
you're
No.
good
You know,
at something,
sitting
you're
on this
always hoping for
side,
better.
sitting on this side, it's easier for you to say that you will lose because you have a job. Maybe you're well off. But look at a guy who's looked for a job for 10 years. You know, he has a kid coming on the way. He has siblings to take care of.
Thank you.
And
Things to
and you're putting him on this position where he has to weigh his value as a human being, his value maybe as and to lose a job. Someone will give in very easily.
Okay, if
very
the person
easily.
gives in,
True.
let them not complain, because they had a decision to make and they chose that decision. Let them not complain.
Because you know, guys, if we use this argument, the prostitute on the street, I mean, has siblings to look after.
Thank you.
The bank robber, man, has a wife who's
Thank you.
pregnant. The politician who swindles the billions, hey, man, his wife needs an operation
Kidney.
a kidney transplant
Thank
in
you.
Germany. The thing is that everybody will have a reason
To do wrong.
for doing wrong if they choose to pick a reason.
Thank
the
you.
point is this.
That is right. That
you
is
know,
right. Yeah.
you just have to decide.
All right, guys. Now,
I know of a Nigerian guy who was a very good, very good salesperson in UK. And they were going to use him to dupe this really wealthy white woman who was going to die. And he chose. It's a choice at the end of the day. It was well paying. He chose to
honestly
save
don't
this
believe.
woman.
Nigeria.
Yes. I know of. Not
Miracles,
all.
right?
I know. I know, but
One in a
then-
million.
Guys, now we've reached
There's
that
hope.
point when we
Don't
actually
generalize
do need to
people.
wrap up. I know the argument is to say using Nigerian
But-
morals.
I know.
I know.
But that is
I know,
stereotyping,
I know.
you know. So, guys, in a few words, I'll start with you, Stefan. Your parting shot.
I think we need to define what sexual harassment is, and then I also need to talk about ignorance. You know, I've been approached by different women. Someone told me that she was, and this is a true story, I think, because of what I do as a profession. Someone took her to his home and actually raped her, and she didn't know what to do. She didn't have an avenue. I think we need to define what sexual harassment is as a society, and people need to know that they can actually go here if something like this is to happen. And then I'd also, you know, implored women, guys, Like, don't keep quiet. Don't keep quiet, you know. Something like this happens, you know, speak out. You know, tell someone that this happened to me. And we need avenues. We need avenues that can protect women, can protect men. And sexual harassment is not one-sided. Men are also, you know, men are also sexually abused. You should not have that mind, that patriarchal mind that, you know, Stefan cannot be sexually assaulted. It happens. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Cool. Great stuff. Gloria, your parting shot.
I'll bring it back to the punishment. Define it, find the right punishment, and then there should always be someone to hear out someone. Without, sometimes the whole, I don't know, the law, sometimes it's too much to break down. If someone really felt sexually harassed, it doesn't matter the law. It doesn't matter the other person who is listening to her. She felt it. You can't change it. Whether she explains it, he or she explains it to the level that you understand it or don't understand it, the fact remains that the person felt harassed in a moment. It doesn't matter what happened because it's broad. We cannot say define it.
I think that there is a couple of positions that one can take with their life. One can decide to be submissive. That means you take whatever is thrown at you. Someone wants to abuse you, misuse you, harass you, and you take it. And you can decide to be aggressive, such that even when someone is not yet doing anything, you are all up in arms, okay? But there is a place where you can be assertive. And I think that that's the place that I approach issues like sexual harassment. You've got to be in a place where you say, you predetermine, this is what I will allow to happen to me, and this I will never allow. So you assert your opinion on a matter because you are living your life. No one is living it for you. And I'm not saying that there are no unfortunate situations where people are raped, or, you know, but to the extent that you are able to be in charge of the matter, I think it's important that we learn to be assertive. And I think that that's the best way to deal with sexual harassment, whether it's for male or female. Yeah. Be assertive.
Great stuff. Billy, as we
I would like to end by disagreeing and agreeing. But I'd like to say that, one, it's never that simple. I know there's right, there's wrong, there's what you should do, but then there's circumstance. As long as we don't have policy or we cannot enforce the laws that we have to the dot or create stricter penalties for such behaviors in society, we are going to get we're not going anywhere. And unfortunately that we're in a society where there are so many wheels turning. This issue is not in a vacuum. This issue goes as broad as unemployment. This issue goes as far as what society has allowed to accept. This issue goes to what Uganda is as a reality. So there's so many things that help to fail the law that is in place. One is policy. We don't have strict policies. Two, it's just the society does not allow people to actually come out. One, we don't have avenues. As I say, there's no avenue. The people you report to, we don't have strict labor unions. Other countries have strict labor unions where people get fired, where they're so strong that politicians have to bribe them. Those are things that we do not have in this society. But, however, they say if one person doesn't stand for the right thing, then it takes one person to stand. It takes one person to stand and say no. And the beauty about this society is that now we have social media. Get a fake account, please. Post this gentleman. Do whatever you have to do to get heard, because the study that was there in 2008 reported about 1,400 cases, and the one case, unless something has changed, but one case. Let's get serious about this. So what happened to the rest? People did report. The police was receiving about 2 cases of sexual harassment almost every day, but you don't see this happening. So we need, as a society, to come and say this is wrong, this is right. How are people raised? What is the morality of the society that we're in?
All right. Great stuff. Gosh, you're getting so passionate.
No.
Breathe in, breathe out, relax. Now, you've heard it from the team here. Guys, that's it from us tonight here at the Sheraton Kampala Hotel. Have a good night, and this show is brought to you by